Hello and welcome to the second episode of Weights and Wine podcast. So if you're new here, welcome. This is all about the balance of life, working through our fitness goals as well as our day-to-day life goals as well, and how we can sort of merge the two without feeling guilty, without feeling like, I can't do this and I can't do that, and this full of restriction land that we can sometimes live in. So today's episode is all about the all or nothing mindset, a place that I've been in many a time, and I'm sure many other people have, and I certainly know a lot of my clients have as well. It's such a common thing, and yeah, it's the day to day. So you were smashing your workouts for 3 weeks, you had one bad day, one bad weekend, and didn't go back for a month. It's common. Or it's like anything, isn't it? You weren't going to drink that month, and you have one, and you think, oh, sod it, going to go for the rest of the month. Doesn't matter now, does it? I've failed. Do you know what I mean? We've all been there. That dry January is where I've definitely failed in the past. So all or nothing, what is it and how do we break it? So we want to cover today some practical tips of how to come out of that mindset, and also just to sort of hopefully make sure everybody understands that they're not the only person who's in that place, and there are ways to come out of it. You don't have to stay as an all or nothing person. You don't necessarily have to identify as an all or nothing person. So yeah, if you've ever completely felt like you're on it 1 minute and completely off it the next, then this episode is for you. Okay, so what is the all or nothing mindset? So it is essentially perfection versus failure, really, isn't it? So if we haven't done exactly what we plan to do, if we sort of look at this on a black and white level, so if we haven't actually hit it perfectly as we imagined, as we've got down, as we planned it, as we've written it down, etc., then essentially it's a failure. And that is what the all or nothing mindset comes down to. It's about perfection. It's often within people that have a perfectionist side. It's often for those that are actually brilliant at so many things in their life, and they're used to having that kind of perfectionist kind of attitude, that kind of the brilliance within whatever they do. So then when something doesn't turn out that way, it's kind of already, it's kaput. And that's often the way. And I really wanted just to point this out because it's so easy to be that person who can be amazing in so many parts of their life, looking after the kids, making sure that everything's kind of running smoothly, making sure their career's on track, making sure that, that document or that presentation is absolutely perfect. And they're achieving. And then when this all or not, because that is in itself a kind of all or nothing mindset in any way, when we then come down to working with our health and fitness, and because we have so many other things going on, and because our brain is in so many other things, quite often we don't perform perfectly particularly because it might even be a new thing in your life as well. So we often sort of find that we then tend to sort of dip on those a little bit, and we might miss that session. We might not be able to make it. We might feel too tired for that day or what have you. And then because we didn't manage it, because of the way that rest of our life works and how great we've kind of got everything else working, that then can feel like a complete failure. And who likes to feel like a failure? No one. So it's easier to then hide in the shadows of that and go, okay, well, it just didn't work, and move on, right? So, but one thing I just want to point out, all or nothing doesn't mean that you are unmotivated, that you're weak, that you can't do it. It just essentially means that if something's not perfect, you just feel like it's failure. And that's just something just to think about. And this is something that I've also learned as well. Even during this podcast, it's not a perfect podcast yet. It certainly wasn't on the first episode either, but that's not the point. It's about doing it. I've had some great feedback. A lot of people have related to what have been said, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And that really goes against my grain. However, it has to be done as something that I want to do as part of my career, and actually allow it to take its steps from there. And that's exactly what we're doing with health and fitness as well. So just something to point out there, just a relatable thing that is sort of I've been thinking about recently in regards to this as well. Let's move on. So where does the all or nothing mindset show up? Let's have a think about it, right? We are in culture at the moment, still now even, and very much over time, a diet culture where it's all about restriction. It's all about suffering. And if you're not suffering, then you're not trying, essentially, right? If your hormonal shifts are sort of taking hold as well. So you might be in perimenopause, or you might be menopausal, or just generally sort of working towards those hormonal shifts in general, or just in a bad time of your cycle. We often can feel more tired, fatigued, unmotivated, just slightly on top of things as well, a bit more brain fog. I know I've been feeling that recently. So it is definitely sort of a part and parcel of that. So not having room for middle ground, having that kind of I'm healthy or I'm not kind of attitude. I think as well, being emotionally reactive, if you are someone who's emotionally reactive, which many of us are. So if you had a bad day at work, if the kids are playing up, if, something sort of had an argument with your partner, it's very easy to kind of dip into kind of a little bit of like sabotage mode, essentially, isn't it? Which is, oh, this has now happened. So I'm now going to do this instead because that's what I would normally do in this circumstance. And that's such a very, relatable thing for myself as well. I have definitely times in life when things happen and I decide to go to the pub instead of to the gym. It's definitely happened on a few occasions, but not something to beat myself up for. It's just something that we do. And it's not necessarily something that we have to completely scrap. It just depends how often these things are showing up. So there are also things to consider. And another sort of way of thinking of it is it's kind of like how, if we've got a lot of stress in our life, it's really just all attached to the nervous system, isn't it? If we think about it, is how the nervous system is attached to what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So that this is why it shows up. How we respond to pressure is essentially where the all or nothing mindset comes in. So if we're under stress and we just consider, like, I've got plenty of clients that have days at work where they definitely had a bad day, felt stressed, things just weren't going right for them, or the builders are in, there's a chaos in the house more than normal. There isn't that room to be able to kind of like go, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Then all of a sudden it's oh, well, I can't do it anyway then, right? So it's such an easy thing for that to happen. So the question is, how do we reframe this? How do we move forward so that we don't have to be thinking like this anymore? Because all or nothing is essentially not getting us anywhere, right? Not when it comes to actually using, if maybe some of our perfectionist sides are great because we can use them in certain areas, actually it really works for us, but actually it's really not working for us when it comes to our day-to-day health and fitness, right? We can't base it on an all or nothing. Life is going to get in the way sometimes, but we have to find a way to be able to not feel like we have to give up on everything, right? We need to be able to still move forward. So I'm just going to go through some of the practical tips that I've gone through with my clients. Many have worked for them. It just depends again on who you are and what works for you. So one of the things that I definitely have covered is introducing the idea of this like messy kind of week, the middle week, the week that it's not going to get done. So we are minimum standards. So we want to think about like having our ideal week versus our medium week versus our not so ideal week but satisfactory. So we're consistent, but we're consistent enough, we feel good about it. So having 3 sort of different weeks planned out is always useful. So we kind of know then what week that we're on. Obviously we're always aiming for that ideal week, but in terms of if we have a medium and a you might only have the 2 options, by the way, but for some we need the 3. It depends on your lifestyle. I've got one lady who there's other medical things that come into that as well. So it's not just about work or stress. It's, we might have other things that are affecting us health-wise. So that might mean that we physically don't have as much. So we need to decide, okay, how can my week look on those weeks or on the weeks where life gets chaotic and I'm still going to be happy at the end of it? I'm going to still feel like, I achieved what I wanted to. And the time to do this is not to do it on that week. You can't plan it on that week. You've got to plan this at an objective time where you can go, well, I know what I'm like on those weeks and I know I can hit these points. And these are the points that I can hit if I really want to, right? So they're the points that you write down. Then we move it into the medium week or we move it into our ideal week, depending on how many weeks you want to base it on. So it really just depends on your lifestyle and how that works. But again, this is all, looking at your lifestyle. So that's one way of doing it. So you'd look at your movement amounts, your steps inclusive, how many times you're going to head to the gym, how many times you're going to do your cardio, depending on your goals. And then how, what your nutrition is going to be like on that week as well. Where are you happy for that to sit? And how can you plan for that week as well? So if you're all of a sudden someone who does have a health condition and you're going to be in bed and you're not going to be able to get to the shops, yes, you can get it all online potentially. If that's not an option, can somebody else get things in for you? Can you already have things made in the freezer so that things are ready to go? So you've done batch cooking that actually you've got this week already in the freezer that's already ready to go. That includes, depending on whether you've got kids or not, how that is worked within that and what support you have. All of those things come into it, but it's just planning what works for you on that kind of week. Same on the other weeks. Ideal week, exactly how that would work as well. And I think actually having a picture of those means that there's always going to be some form of consistency, and consistency enough. Okay, so we're ticking boxes, and that essentially still works towards our goals. It doesn't mean it has to be all or nothing. So that's the first one, I would say. So second one, going back to last week's podcast, we talked about the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, we're being good, right? We're being good in the realms of our goals and what we want to achieve, whether that's nutrition, whether that's the steps, whether that's the gym, all of those things. We're actually hitting these things 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time, we're able to, have those treats, have the, I've heard it as the 80% whole food, 20% soul food, right? So that's another way of doing that. So that's another practical tip for you. So that's working with the weeks that you feel are right for you. And then you've got your 80-20 as well. Okay. So they're the first two. Trying to not miss more than one session where possible. Okay. So if you miss one, obviously we're in a place where we have just missed one. It's not gonna hurt any progress at all. Let's just get back straight to it the next day. If we miss two, all of a sudden we're starting to integrate a pattern. So it's just always trying to think to yourself, right, I'm only ever going to miss one. I'm never going to miss two, right? So that's just one way of doing it. If it's unavoidable, that's a different thing. But one, try and work with the never miss more than one in a row rule, okay? So that's another one to work with. Another one would be always put in 5 minutes. This is a really, really good one and a really important one, and one that I have worked with myself on for so many years. For me, it's always been 10, but because I ain't walking to the gym for 5, but for 10 minutes, yes, absolutely. So what I mean by that is, or going for that run, if you just cannot be bothered because you know what, your program's on in a minute and you've had a bit of a tiring day, maybe you could do it tomorrow, just do 10 minutes. That's it. That's all you have to do. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. The likelihood is you will continue. You know this, we know this. However, if you did just do 5 minutes and you know what, you felt like shit, or 10 minutes and you were like, no, actually really, I'm not doing this today, then you can leave it and you go, but it was still a win because you still tried. So that's the next one. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes, at least get it done. I'm sure you've heard this one before, but it really is, it works, it's there, use it. Yes, this is a good one. So when it comes to how we think about our goal, okay, so if we have a goal that's really, really far away, i.e., I want my body to look great for my holiday that's in August. Okay, well, we're in May. Really easy, isn't it, for me to start going, well, I'll start again tomorrow because I've still got loads of time. Or you know what, this week I'm just going to count it out. Let's do it next week. Right. And then as we go, before we know it, we're 3 weeks out. So I've done this with clients as well. We think we've got loads of time to lose the fat, etc. And then before you know it, we're 4 weeks out. Not much has gone. Inconsistency's been there. And it's actually now really time to pick it up. And, and to be honest, we can't make it happen any quicker than it's going to happen. We've got to start from the beginning and make that, because we've got to instill the habits as well. It's not just about the actual journey. We've got to leave room for those times when the week doesn't go as planned and we're going to be a little bit on our back foot. So we need to sort of make sure that our goals are kind of about right now, not about in 3 months. So yes, we can have the 3-month goal, 100%, but we want that everyday goal. So you've got to think about your identity when it comes to this. So the way that I would describe it is, so you want to think, okay, I am doing this for my health. Health is day to day. Health is not in 3 months. Health is not in 5 years. Health is day to day, isn't it? So we've got to think, we can think about things like, I'm doing this for my health because I want to be healthy. So that's an immediate thing to think about, right? So that's not tomorrow either. That's today. Another way, another sort of version or alongside that as well, I think as well, is how you move every day. So if you identify as someone that I move every day, that is another way of doing that as well. So you can be like, I move every day. I am someone that moves every day. So that means that you are going to tick off some form of movement every day, whether that's your steps, whether that's your gym workout, whether that's your run or your walk or whatever it may be, you are someone that moves every day. And I think the more that we identify as these people, the more that we do that. It's the same way. And it's like you'll hear a lot of people say, about people being gym girls. And I think, when people start identifying themselves as that gym girl, then they start wearing, gym outfits that they love, that make them feel confident. They want to go and buy new gym wear. It helps you want to get into the gym. So that's just one form of what I mean by identity. If you want to identify as someone who goes to the gym that feels good, then what are the types of things that those people do? And that's another way of trying to shift your identity a little bit in terms of your what your actions are to follow as well. Another thing I just want to point out is about the wagon. Okay, there is no wagon. Okay, the only wagon that I see around here or in London are those ones where people are bicycling them up and down with loud music, singing ABBA, blah, 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 which they're fine. Get on those wagons, no worries, don't fall off of those. But they're the fun wagons that you're allowed to get on. There ain't no other wagon, okay, at all. So the only thing that happened is that you potentially had an extra glass of wine last Tuesday or an extra biscuit out of the biscuit tin. So that would be what I would say. Forget about it. You're on, just get back onto it as soon as you can. So that's what I would say in terms of the practical tips. So we've got our lists, we've got our 80-20 split, we've got our identity shifts. So how can we identify as the person that we want to essentially be? What actions do they take? We've got our just 5 to 10 minute rule. Never miss more than one at a session. So always go with the one session. Okay, got to get the next one. Absolutely non-negotiable as much as possible. They're the things that I would say to definitely think about in terms of practical tips. Okay, so just to close things out in regards to the all or nothing mindset. So something just to really say is being honest, is that it's probably never going to go away fully, because you show up with it in other parts of your life where it probably works for you, right? So it's never going to fully go away. It's going to be something there that's going to slip in now and again. Okay, but what we're trying to do here is we're going to try and catch it earlier. We're going to try and understand what we're doing. We're going to try and make sure that we've got ideas and ways that we can overcome our all or nothing mindset when it's not serving us. And that's the really important thing. So actually learning to be consistent is a skill. It's not something that actually you're just going to have immediately. It's a lot easier to be all or nothing. And I think that's really just the truth of it. And it's something that, again, as I say, something I've had to learn as well. So it's about kind of, I have so many people that say to me things like, I just didn't think I would be the sort of person that can be consistent. So your belief within that is so important. You have to start believing that you can be the sort of person that can be consistent. You have to start seeing that for yourself. You have to start understanding what actions you need to take to be consistent for you. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You've got to take that ownership. When you are hitting your all or nothing and it's not serving you, you've got to start self-believing of how you can be consistent with it. And I promise you, you can. If I can, you can. That's for sure. So just take on those practical tips, start reframing it, start thinking about how you can make it work for you. And it's, again, all down to the planning. So planning those weeks, planning those day to day. Don't let Monday seem like the most sparkly thing in the world. We don't want to be restarting. We're just having another week, another brilliant week. So I'll leave that with you. Honestly, consistency is not something that is easily come to anyone. If you haven't been there yet, it's somewhere you can be. It's 100% you've got it. It's inside of you. You can move forward with it 100%. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to point out, or I'd love to hear about, anything that you've related to in this podcast or anything that maybe hasn't been mentioned that you feel is worth bringing up, we can always cover it later on. So I'm going to just move on to some questions also that relate slightly to this subject as well, that I think will be really helpful to you. So let's get on with those. Okay, so first question. So I've had a really few bad weeks, stressful at work, didn't train, ate badly. I feel like I've undone all my progress. Where can I start from here? Okay, so really good question, and definitely one that I'm sure will resonate with many people. Okay, so if we reframe this, rather than thinking I've undone all my progress, I've failed, it's the end, I might as well not bother anymore. Let's think about what we've learned from it. Okay, so rather than it being like no progress, it's just progress that it's kind of a different kind of progress, because this is part of your journey, isn't it? Your journey in when you're starting a fitness or health journey, or you're continuing with it, it's all part of the journey, and everybody is going to have had these moments. And what we can do with them is actually just learn from them and go, okay, well, what can I do differently next time? What could I have done about this situation? If the answer is absolutely nothing, then you have nothing to even consider whatsoever. You just get straight back on it as soon as you possibly can. So it's all about what you learn from it, right? What could I have done differently to make that situation better? Or I didn't get back on it the next day. That's what I needed to do. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to have those times, but it's how we kind of pick up ourselves from that. So it might just be that I'm going to get that workout in tomorrow instead of the day after because I missed it today. So I'm just going to bring that forward early just so I know I've got that in. I mean, it could just be, okay, I'm going to make sure that I make my lunch in the morning so I've got that ready. Anything that's a small kind of action, it could literally be, I'm just going to do an extra 500 steps tomorrow. That's it. It doesn't have to be anything wild. Yeah. So it's just really think about what you can learn from it. How quickly can you get back to it, and not necessarily back to the whole deal. It just needs to be one small action, just one step towards back where you were. You're all good to go. Okay. So next question. I'm really good at the week. Oh God, this is such a common one. I'm really good in the week, but then the weekend completely derails me. I feel like I can't trust myself around food when I'm not in routine. Is this all or nothing? Yeah, this is part of all or nothing. Absolutely. The weekend versus week split is absolutely all or nothing mindset, and it's all part and parcel of it's again such a really big relatable thing for so many people, particularly a lot of my clients who work in the city. They're busy in the week, they've got that kind of rigidity of routine. Weekend comes around, all changes, and everybody else gets involved as well. So it's not even like it's completely all in your control. So some of the things that I've said to my clients when it comes to the weekend is look at having a structure for in the week and having a structure for the weekend. Now that structure is going to look different. So same as like we had before, we had the ideal week, we had the middle week, etc. We might also have an ideal weekend, an ideal in the week, an off weekend, an off week, that kind of thing. So what I mean by that is because your weekend is not going to fit into the same structure. So I've talked about this before on my Instagram as well. It's not going to fit into the same structure that you have in the week. It's not going to have the same routine, the same predictability. So you've got to sort of work with that. You've got to work with where you can still have your non-negotiables. And working with non-negotiables means you don't necessarily have to fit them in at the same times. You can do them at different points of the day, but you've got to sort of plan, okay, where can that fit in once you know what your day is? It might even be that you can't know until the day. So you'll wake up on the Saturday, the kids are going here, you're taking people there, you've got a dinner party in the evening, you've got whatever you're doing. But it's like, what are my non-negotiables within that? Now, I think something to also consider is how much are you restricting yourself in your week? Because if you are restricting yourself massively in the week and then the weekend comes around and routine goes out the window and you've restricted yourself the whole week, you are going to feel like, I just want to let loose, get all the food in, be merry, whatever it may be, or just feed something that hasn't been fed in the week. Forgive the pun, not necessarily food. So I think what you've got to think is if you're someone who, doesn't drink or anything at the week, and then the weekend comes around and you're 2 bottles of wine down on a Saturday, maybe you're out with the girls, maybe you're not, maybe with friends, maybe you're just sat watching the telly, who knows? But it's might be something that you're doing to de-stress or whatever. But we've got to think, what is that fulfilling? So the same way, if we go and eat, we go out and because going out and having a nice meal on a Saturday, by the way, is not a bad thing. That's life. That's a lifestyle. That's enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's more about how you feel about it after and whether that is actually a form of sabotage. So if you feel that it is, then it's like, well, what are we trying to fulfill in those moments that we're not getting otherwise? And I think this is a really important question across the board. What need are we looking for that is fulfilling? Because often there's something within it that we're trying to fulfill. And an example for this would be like, I am a sweet toothed person, as many people are. And it's something I've dealt with my clients as well, is if you love chocolate, there's nothing wrong with liking chocolate. We all love chocolate. Lots of us love chocolate. That's why I've been so upset the last couple of years when I've been on prep Easter. Anyway, so I do love chocolate. However, I replace that with dark chocolate. Okay, now it might not be for everyone. It might not be the taste for everybody. And 70% is definitely a place to start if you're more of a dairy chocolate person. But that in itself, just having a square or 2 squares of that most days for me, because it's great because it slows down digestion. It's got some healthy fats in it as well. So there's nutritional output for it, which is a lot better than, the general chocolate that's out there. But it also just fulfills that craving for me. So I don't feel like at a weekend I need to go out and have as many sweet treats as possible because I'm still getting a bit of that every day. So it's like, how can we fulfill these needs, whatever it may be? It might even not be anything to do with the food. It might be something else that's going on that we can kind of discover through this process. But it's definitely worth always asking, what is it that is fulfilling for you? Same with alcohol. If we're having binging nights, what is that fulfilling for you? And what actually does it take away as well? And how can we make that situation work? That doesn't mean, oh, we should have like a drink every day so that we don't want lots of drinks at the weekend. But it's like, what is that fulfilling that need? Is it a feeling of freedom? Are we feeling stressed? Are we, how can we manage that in other ways? And it's definitely not about stopping things and restricting ourselves more. It's about kind of integrating what we need to actually fulfill the actual need, not necessarily what we think we need to fill, if that makes sense. So that's just something that I would say on that. So again, structuring the weekends differently to the week, not expecting it to be the same is my first thing, just to re-go over that. Giving yourself the permission to actually have a few treats at a weekend is okay. Also, remember, we've still got that 80-20 balance. Yeah, but if you feel like, we've had all that, we thought we're in that 80 at the week, and then at the weekend, actually, we've probably added on another 50% some way, then it becomes more like 50-50. Then yeah, we've got to start thinking about what are our non-negotiables? How can we make that work within the weekends that we have, even if it is chaotic? And what need are they actually filling? Okay, so again, any more questions on the back of this, do let me know, and I'll leave it there for today. Hope you've enjoyed the second podcast about the all or nothing mindset. And I am a coach. So just to sort of point out that any of these things, if you need further help with them, do get in touch. Always happy to have a chat. And then if you're looking for a little bit more guidance and direction, then maybe we can have a chat about that as well. All right. Well, all the very best for everybody. Take care, and I'll see you next time.